Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on your time zone. Great to have you in our SAP User Groups YouTube stream today. We continue our SAP Signavio webcast series, and today is actually the last session out of 5 webcasts that are part of the SAP Signavio webcast series. So today is the episode number 5, and the topic is SAP Signavio and LeanIX, how to integrate business processes and their architecture behind. For this topic, we have 2 great experts who will explain us how this works and also show a demo. Our speakers for today are Florian Schwitzgebel, who is Product Marketing Manager, Partner Solutions at SAP Signavio, and Chris Knapp, who is Enterprise Architect of SAP Signavio. My name is Larissa Brinkman from the SAP Global User Groups organization, and I'm your host for today. We kindly ask you to place your questions via live chat, and we will answer them at the end of the presentation. The additional materials of this session will be available under the same link in the description to the video of today's session shortly after the stream will be finished. If Florian go back to the slide before, I will briefly go through the topics that we have already covered in our SAP webcast series, SAP Signavio webcast series. Florian, can you go to this one. For those who are the first time in our session, please check what we have done so far. As I've already indicated, the SAP Signavio webcast series consists of 5 sessions. The topics of the sessions are mentioned on the slide on your screen. This you will also can look at the PDF that will be available for download at the end of the stream, and I will also post the link to the sessions where you can also find the links to the replays of every session. If you have any questions to this, please ask them in the live chat, and I hope you will enjoy today's session, and I kindly ask Florian to take over.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Larissa. Let's kick it off. Maybe we start with a short introduction, and Chris, you may introduce yourself.
Sure, thanks, Florian. Yeah, Chris Knapp is my name. I'm an enterprise architect working with SAP Signavio. I've been with SAP for a little more over 20 years, mainly working with largest of our customers on their transformation.
Perfect, thanks, Chris. Yeah, my name is Florian Schwitzgebel. I joined SAP 1 year ago in May as a product marketing specialist for partner integrations. Before I joined SAP, I worked in different positions in sales, product management, product marketing, project management in the B2B IT and software industry, and I'm based in Germany. So with that, let's jump into today's topic, Chris, right? So I'm pretty sure you are all in the audience. You are all here because you're looking on a major transformation project within your organization, now, currently, or in the future, right? So let's see how SAP Signavio and LeanIX in combination can accelerate your transformation journey by integrating processes with the IT architecture behind. Starting with the agenda and looking into it, we've prepared some great insights and information for you, starting with the topic of how LeanIX and SAP Signavio can enable your transformation project. Then we are looking into the topic of how you can connect business processes and solutions with enterprise architecture, before we then show you how you can realize the connect of business and IT. We are closing today's webinar with a tangible product demo by Chris of SAP Signavio and the integration with LeanIX Enterprise Architecture, followed by a Q&A session at the end. And Larissa already mentioned it, so feel free to add all your questions to the chat so that we can answer them at the end. Let's start with the first point of the agenda, enabling the transformation with SAP Signavio and LeanIX. There's a lot of transformation out there. We all know that. So some of them, or some of these projects, come from internal initiatives. Others are caused by change, which is driven from the outside, right? No matter if it's an ERP or a software transformation project, if it's a move into the cloud, if it's the change of your organization's business model, if it's a disruptive supply chain, or if it's even an operational excellence project. You all today in this call, you are all facing different transformation projects, but they have all one in common. Business or successful business transformations are really a team sport. Key for success of transformation projects is how well all your lines of business and all your companies working together to optimize the whole, not only a silo. Therefore, the handshake between business and IT for you is critical to achieve all the transformation objectives. Besides that, an understanding of the starting point is really essential to plan your future state. How are your processes currently supported by your applications? It's one of the questions. Which interfaces do they depend on? Where's your data stored, right? Lots of questions. And today you will hear why planning of the future requires really a solid understanding of your current state. And last but not least, even with the best planning, there's still a level of uncertainty if you don't have a detailed picture of how the end result will look like. Questions like, how can I detect my roadblocks as early as possible? How can I make sure that all my risks are addressed? All these kind of questions are really important to answer during and before your transformation journey. Taking control is essential for successful transformation projects, no matter what journey you are facing as an organization. But at the end, too much control leads to frustration and slow progress. So let's see how you can manage all your transformation journeys you are facing now and in the future in the best way by integrating business processes with the architecture behind. Let's start with the BPM side. SAP Signavio is a cloud-based process transformation suite that gives you as an organization the ability to understand scale, no matter if your solution is a SAP solution or not. On top of that, our SAP Signavio process transformation suite reduces the time taken to deliver initiatives, allowing you to find improvement areas faster, act based on recommendations while speeding up your time to adapt the process changes with an end-to-end process orientation. In addition, SAP Signavio, the process transformation suite, allows you to model your journeys and your processes based on common standards, driving collaborative efforts, customer excellence strategies, and more. Changing the way everyone thinks within your organization about processes is key to a resilient and sustainable business. And on the other hand, today, we have the enterprise architecture. On the enterprise architecture side, we cover all relevant topics with LeanIX. LeanIX is an SAP Endorsed App. LeanIX describes themselves as the Google Maps for IT to navigate to the target of successful transformations. LeanIX finally is a map for business apps, for SaaS, for microservices, and the management of it. And with that, in this introduction, I hand over to Chris, who now shows you to connect processes and solutions with enterprise architecture.
Thanks a lot, Florian. So let me share my screen. Perhaps give me a hint when you can see it. Okay, so let's dig a little bit deeper in how we connect business processes and solutions with enterprise architecture in mind. So transformation is really all about optimization, and it's mostly in continuous steps rather than in radical revolutionary measures. So the question is really, how can we accelerate that cycle between the point in time where we understand what is our current situation and the adaptation and how we have to improve. So Signavio helps to accelerate that cycle between insights, understanding our business, knowing the real execution, and the adaptation. So what really drives us when we develop our solutions, those are the two KPIs, fast time to insight and fast time to adapt. So those are the things that really matter in a transformation. Fast time to insight, fast time to understand where we are, and fast time to adapt, and then getting there as fast as possible. So in preparation for transformation, it's really important to understand the real execution. And then with the transformation priorities in mind, with business strategy in mind, it's all about knowing then the target model or deriving the target model, agreeing on a target model, finding a consensus on the target model with all stakeholders involved in such a complex thing as enterprise transformation. And then ultimately, it's also about knowing the solution. So we start with analyzing processes, and that gives us an understanding where the bottlenecks are, where the improvement potential is. Perhaps a process analysis also helps us compare with peers or with other players in the industry. So to really understand what good looks like. And from there, we can derive a process design, perhaps with the help of SAP best practices, a knowledge derived over 50 years of experience that SAP has gained in industries and processes in industries. So connecting these things is a really powerful thing. And from there, from designing a process, from finding consensus on a process, from agreeing on a process, it is all about then designing the right solution that supports the process. And so this is not just a one-time thing. So there's a reason why there is this infinity. We've designed this infinity loop because it never really stops, because transformation really is a continuous thing rather than something that happened once and then we will keep that as is for the rest of the days. So therefore, it is really important to keep the life cycle of a business process, a process that evolves, that constantly adapts to a changing environment, to new regulation, to new market dynamics, and to really keep that process in sync with the solution. Because what happens if we don't do that? Then we design a process once, we design a solution once, but if we don't keep that connect, the process will drift apart, and the solution will perhaps not evolve at the same pace. And as a result, users are become unhappier from release to release with the application, and start to manage the process outside of the application with all the disadvantages that occur, and we want to avoid that. So processes and solutions in sync is something that's really important continuously as we are transforming. Now, and it's also, and we're extending this perspective a little bit together with our partner, LeanIX. We're extending this loop of processes and solutions into the world of architecture. So taking it beyond the perspective of a single application, taking it more into a landscape perspective that we have with architecture. So typically, many of our customers, or all of our customers, really mission critical processes, they run beyond a single application. They run through cloud, they run through on-premise. So hybrid architecture, so hybrid landscapes are really the reality. And in order to keep them sync, in order to really holistically transform the business, we need to turn our perspective to architecture and connect, for example, a portfolio planning or an architecture planning, an initial architecture planning in our transformation. When we define the target state or our North Star, if we support that with a process analysis to ensure that we're really focusing on the right things in an appropriate way. So Signavio provides all the ingredients for successful transformation. So it's, of course, we have tools, but if you think about it, it's really not about tools. It's really about a methodology, a transformation methodology that connects architecture, processes, and solutions, and brings those closely together. And yes, of course, a solution helps because it gives you structure. It gives you it gives you processes. It gives you something to lean towards to. And the transformation suite that we have with many integrated capabilities that connect LeanIX and Signavio, that is a really powerful tool to give structure throughout a transformation. From the beginning, when you start planning the initial architecture, all the way throughout the execution, the deployment of the solutions, phase by phase, really ensuring that we're on track and that we keep processes and solutions in sync throughout. And it's also about value accelerators. Yes, you have a choice. You can start with a blank piece of paper. You can start from scratch and start designing your processes. You can start designing your architecture from scratch. But a way that's slightly more clever, maybe to lean towards the expertise that SAP has collected over the past 50 years, which we now bring together as part of the SAP Signavio value accelerators, where we have best practice processes, where we have industry reference architectures that are really specific for industry. So no matter whether you're an automotive supplier, whether you're a consumer products company, you will find rich content here that helps you start the conversation with your lines of business and start deriving your own North Star from what SAP is proposing is the North Star based on the experience of 50 years in the software business. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the methodology and how those two disciplines, business process management, supported by SAP Signavio, and enterprise architecture, that's really what LeanIX stands for, come together and connect, and how bringing business process improvements orchestrated by Signavio in sync with architecture, investment, and governance supported by LeanIX together is a really powerful combination. So if you think about it, business process management and enterprise architecture, they're independent work streams. So business process management is a discipline really more often to find with lines of business, when the focus is on business processes and finding a system to continuously improve those business processes. And enterprise architecture really comes more towards the IT side of the enterprise, which helps us manage complexity and manage from an IT perspective throughout transformations. Now, if you think about it, both disciplines, although they're disconnected, they're often disconnected, they really have the same objectives. So they're both set to enable business strategy. They're both set to enable transformation. And they both aim to break down business objectives into transformation or IT priorities. And if you look at descriptions of business process management, enterprise architecture, you'll quite often find that notion of aligning business and IT to deliver transformation at both ends. You quite often find that notion of aligning business and IT on respective slides. So that's something those two disciplines have in common, but they're achieving these objectives with slightly different ways. So business process management by the means of the focus on business processes, and enterprise architecture by the focus on the various layers that consist or that comprise an enterprise architecture. So starting from the business layer to the application data layer, down to the technology layer, and show the respective connections and how those layers are intertwined. That's what enterprise architecture does. Now, we've asked ourselves the question, what if BPM and enterprise architecture would not be disconnected? What would happen if we would connect those disciplines and enable transformation at both ends in an orchestrated way? So what impact could that make if we put those disciplines together and ensure a handshake, really a handshake between business and IT? Now, this is how we could realize that handshake, or how we connect those disciplines, business and IT. So we asked ourselves, what are connecting elements? What are elements that both enterprise architecture and business process management have in common? So both are very flexible, and you'll probably find in those people, everything is about people, everything is about processes, capabilities, applications, data, and technology. So you probably find that in both disciplines somewhere. No matter if you manage, if you have a business process management initiative, or if you are an enterprise architecture practitioner. So, but the more you move from the left to the right, the deeper you'll be in IT territory, right? So IT will also manage processes, of course. IT will also manage people in a way. Users need to be managed. People and processes are rather the focus of business process management, because business process management has a pure focus on on processes, whereas then capabilities, applications, you're moving more into the IT domain, and therefore we typically focus on three elements here when connecting Signavio and LeanIX. So we focus on processes, we focus on capabilities, and we focus on applications. So when establishing a tool chain, a transformation tool chain between Signavio and LeanIX, and possibly then also adding additional components that enable transformation on, it's important, or it's essential to determine which system is leading for which data object. Okay, so for processes, it's certainly Signavio, because in Signavio this is what Signavio is about, to systematically manage business processes across the life cycle. Now with capabilities, it's not so clear anymore. Some of our customers, they manage these capabilities also in Signavio, but most would probably for the sake of doing a comprehensive architecture planning, manage their capabilities in LeanIX in order to derive a target application landscape. So applications, data, and technology. So as it's getting, as you can note by the color, probably we are more moving into the IT territory, and so technology certainly is owned or is managed and purely in LeanIX or in your enterprise architecture tool, and still connected, of course, to processes, as we'll show in a demo in a minute. So processes, capabilities, and applications. And now let's think for a second, if you combine those disciplines, what could be the use cases? What are the things that we can do easier or better or perhaps that we're not able to do as well before? So we are thinking of 4 use cases. So here are some that we believe that particularly benefit from a combined use of business process management and enterprise architecture. So number 1, you have process improvements aligned with not only the existing but also the future architecture. So if you're doing that, then these process improvements will be much more sustainable because you have a perspective on how your underlying architecture will change or is planned to evolve. So decisions then on applications, on interfaces, they can then be made with a view on how they are planned to evolve and how we integrate that evolution of the IT stack beyond into the evolution of the processes as we talk about improvements. Then number 2, so application improvement and root cause fixing, that will be much easier with a view on business processes. So particularly if those processes are critical to an enterprise mission and carry risk and go across applications, which they typically do. Number 3, it's all about holistic business continuity management. Continuity management with process and IT architecture combined. So traditionally, we also as SAP, when customers asked us on helping them with managing continuity, we had a perspective together with our customers on systems, on applications. How can we make the ERP system or the CRM system? How can we manage continuity here? And we did this with a pure view on the applications. Now, if we're combining the perspective of business processes and applications, so then continuity management truly becomes holistic, and we can make much smarter decisions on where to invest and how to manage uptime better, and how to manage those KPIs that matter. For example, during impact analysis on when we manage business continuity in a much cleverer way. So how can we reduce the impact to business of a system of unplanned system failure on our mission critical processes? So that is a key question that we can only really look into systematically when we have a focus on both the business process and the architecture that's beneath. So number 4, last but not least, is a very powerful, particularly for enterprise architects, a very powerful use case. Architecture decisions, traditionally, they often are made based on people's opinions, people's gut feeling. And so based on that, investment decisions have been taken, transformation decisions have been taken. Now, what if we would make them actually based on actual business process insights, based on actual business process performance, so that helps us steer our business, steer our transformation in a much clearer, more objective way, and helps us then really do a data-driven transformation. So it's very difficult to measure architecture, nearly impossible. But with the help of business processes can very easily be measured, and connecting then business processes to architecture decisions is a very powerful tool that helps attribute a certain business value to architecture decisions. Okay, so but perhaps let's have a look on how this could look like in a system. So in the system, how is that supported? How are these use cases supported by the tool chain that we propose here with Signavio and with LeanIX? So let's have a look. Let's start here with a focus on the business process. So here we see credit management, the as-is process. So we see here a classical business process diagram where we see that there's a sales representative, a credit controller, which together perform certain activities in concert in order to achieve a goal. So it starts by sales order is created, order management is initiated, we create customer master data, and then we have 3 steps here. A credit score is created manually or calculated manually. A risk class is assigned or calculated, and then the credit limit request is initiated. And we see all of that is done by an application that's underneath. And if we click on that, we see it's a SAP ERP, a FICO system, FICO in France, so a specific instance of an application. And by clicking on that, we see that there we can find out more. So there's a jump into LeanIX. If I click on here, I normally do not need to sign on. In that case, I do. Somebody has locked me out, and but no problem. Normally, single sign-on is here activated or enabled. And if I go to LeanIX, I see a lot more information about this application. So I see, for example, the life cycle. I see that this application is set to be phased out at a certain point in time, and so I can also see that there are relations here. So this application supports other processes. So I see the processes in the relationship explorer here. It's not only credit management, but it's other processes that are also supported here. And if I drill down more into into these relationships, I see that there is a parent application. So SAP ERP is the parent of SAP FICO. I can look into that fact sheet as well, and I see that that there are many other children here. So there are many other applications underneath SAP ERP in use here. So if I click on here, I see a list of all applications that are active in SAP ERP. So I also see that ERP has a slightly longer, or that parent application has a slightly longer life cycle. So it's only planned to be to become end of life in 2027, whereas our application FICO France was set to be sunset much earlier. So I can drill into other applications here, and so what is really nice then about LeanIX is that I can also do classifications. I can assign certain priority in my transformation, and I can assign data diagrams, and I see which show me how what are the upstream systems here, what are the data sources of my ERP system. I could drill further into those. So those are my integrations, and And I could also see what are the downstream systems. So where is the information, or where's the data going into then once I'm done processing here? Yeah. So that's just a snapshot on what I can do or what I can see in LeanIX, which hopefully shows that it really gives me the visibility that I need in a transformation to make decisions. To make decisions on when I improve a process, to make decisions on when I plan to retire a certain application. I can see what are the processes that are connected or that are supported, and from the processes I can go into go back into roles, right? So it's really a 360 view that is enabled then by connecting Signavio and LeanIX to manage transformations better. Now let's have a look at what is really the benefit. And so if I go back to slides, so what is really in for our business process management work stream? So we will undoubtedly have a maximum of transparency, the transparency beyond business processes, a transparency deep into IT. What are the underlying applications, and what are the plans to change those applications? So that, from a BPM perspective, helps us to be much better in our decision making when making decisions about processes, when we measure them, when we plan to improve them. We can do this improvement decision then based on an understanding of what is the architecture beyond, and that itself will result into a much faster adaptation and a much better agility. Now, what is in for our enterprise architecture practice? So undoubtedly we'll be able to better connect to business needs and business goals simply by understanding how well the business is, and by getting some objectivity into the state of business, by being able to measure the business processes and understand what are the applications that are currently supporting those business processes. So we can bring in much more focus here on or higher focus on improving those applications. And ultimately, it helps us really establish a business value-driven architecture. So once each portfolio decision is then taken based on real business process insights, that over time will result into an architecture that's ultimately driven by business, and which is driven then by the value that it brings to business. So not just IT being isolated, but IT can really then make a claim that that they do transformation based on business needs, based on business process performance. And ultimately, a big benefit for enterprise architects is that the connection to business process management really helps make architecture measurable. It's very difficult to measure architecture decisions, but by having this connect from capabilities or applications to business processes, it's very easy to measure business processes, as you have seen in the last sessions of this series. If we measure business processes and attribute those then to architecture decisions, that will also result in making architecture measurable. And then with that, really helps us transform or make decisions in an objective way instead of gut feeling or opinion. So with that, I think we are at the end of the presentation, and we could open ourselves up for questions. Larissa, have there been any questions in the chat so far?
First of all, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Florian, for your presentation and for your demo. So far, I can't see questions in the chat. I can only encourage our audience to bring up questions in the chat and to leverage this moment of experts talking about this topic. And I allow a few more minutes for questions to come into chat if there are some. But I think in preparation to this session, I've also learned that there are some questions that were brought up earlier in various conversations. And one of such questions is how technical connection works. Can you probably elaborate on
Okay.
this?
Yes. So, I mean, Signavio and LeanIX are tools that used by many customers independently. And but more and more customers now have been, over the past, say, 2 years, aiming to connect those to applications, because they're both very helpful in transformation, and for the reasons just mentioned, connecting those, there's a lot of benefits derived out of. So there is a technical integration provided by LeanIX into Signavio that's based on an API, and that lets us, for example, exchange in a bi-directional way business processes, capabilities, applications, but also data objects, and any layer that is managed in enterprise architecture in LeanIX can be exported and exposed along with business processes in SAP Signavio. So there's an API available that is very flexible, and that works in both directional way, but you need to obviously decide what is the leading system. So you want to make sure that business processes can only be changed in Signavio and then are put on display only in LeanIX to avoid synchronization issues.
Yeah, and maybe
Okay.
I can maybe add something, and as this integration is established a long time ago, we certified LeanIX as an application within its integration as an SAP Endorsed App. I think, yeah, at least 9 months ago. That, by the way, means this whole integration is really premium certified by SAP. It's measured against benchmarks, so it's really relevant for you that you know that this integration is something that's really supported, checked on security, whatever, by SAP. That's really a benefit, and we can deliver on this LeanIX integration as well.
Right. Thank you very much. I can't see questions in the chat. So if there will be some, you can add your comment to the video to the replay of the session, meaning you can leave a comment to the video that will stay on YouTube, and contact us if you have any additional question that will probably come up later. With this, again, I would like to thank you to our audience being with us today. And of course, I would like to thank you, Florian and Chris, for this presentation and demo. And as promised, I've posted the link to all the sessions that we conducted under SAP Signavio webcast series. So feel free to leverage this amount of information and knowledge available under this link, and yes, watch replays and spread the word in your communities. With this, again, thank you very much. I wish you a great day and hope to welcome you in some of our upcoming sessions.
Thanks a lot, Larissa, for facilitating.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thanks.
Thank
and
you.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.